What's up, guys? This is Miles Markowitz.
And this is Brad Thomas.
Here to give you the best sports insights to beat your book.
You only need to ask one question.
What's the spread? All right, welcome in. What's the spread? It's feels like we're a couple days here before Christmas because we have 4 top 25 games in college football to talk about this weekend. It took a long time to get here.
Yeah, it did.
But it feels good. We got some serious matchups. Let's not waste any time this week, man.
Yes.
Let's go right into it. Everyone's talking about the big one. This feels like really the first big game of the year. Number 7, Miami. Number 1, Clemson. Clemson, 14-point favorites. Saturday Night Football. Who do we like here?
I'm taking Miami. I'm taking the points with 14. What about you?
I'm on the other end. We continue to disagree on college football.
Yeah, we do.
I like Clemson here, minus 14. I got some against the spread trends to bring to the table, and then I want to hear why you like Miami. All right.
Cool.
Clemson has been a covering machine. Last 24 conference games, 17-6-1 against the spread. How about their last 17 games as a favorite of 3 touchdowns or less? So close spreads, they're covering 13-3-1 against the spread there. And Miami, 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 against Clemson. I know why a lot of people are on Miami here, and listen, it's warranted. Their offense is humming, and D'Eriq King is the truth. However, I think that Clemson looked a little bit lazy last week. Closer game than it should have been against Virginia. I think that they were a little bored. I think that they come out really here under the lights on the big stage, and I think that they get the cover late in the fourth quarter. I can see Miami keeping this a 7-point game for most of the time because I feel like King has that ability to extend the chains. But why are you going here with Miami?
For Miami, they have a lot of things that are going really well for them. We all know King is the obvious. 0 interceptions on the season. They also have Cameron Harris. Cameron Harris is a running back beast who has the ability to move the chains, and it makes them a little bit more dimensional than just being one-sided. On top of that, we already saw that Clemson had to replace a lot of defenders. And,
yes.
and I was the first person to say that. Clemson always retools and reloads. And this year is the first year that I actually looked at Venables and was like, he knows that they have serious weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball. Expect a high scoring game between these two. And when I see high scoring games like that, it tells me that it's going to be close. You have a Miami team who's averaging 43 points per game, and you have a Clemson team who is also playing at a high level and playing great on the defensive side of the football. But when they let Brennan Armstrong throw over 270 yards and 3 touchdowns and 89 rushing yards, that scares me. And it's not like they couldn't game plan for him because they knew he was going to play. I think that this game's going to be close. I was close enough to take the Miami money line, but then at plus 400, super value. But I do think that Dabo is just too elite of a coach, and they have too elite of an offense to get in a shooting match and lose. Because Clemson is that team that can get in a shooting match and lose. Miami here also defensively only allowing 19 points per game, when you got to imagine they played 2 very good opponents. Very
impressive, and honestly, I think we're going to learn a lot about the college football playoff picture here because Clemson really doesn't have a lot of challenging games this year. Real quick fun fact for you bettors of this game. This year, Miami 3-0 against the spread. Clemson 0-3 against the spread.
Crazy.
So something's got to give there. All right, what's next?
Next, we have Tennessee versus Georgia. Georgia is a 13.5-point favorite. I'm going to go and take the 13.5 points. What about you, Miles?
I'm doing the same. I like Tennessee here, plus 13.5. Even with how good Georgia looked last week, and they did, I think that it was more of Auburn being exposed for what they're not bringing to the table.
Yes, absolutely. It wasn't. We talked about this earlier. You look at Gus Malzahn having a quarterback throwing for an average of like 3 yards in the air. That is not going to get it done versus stout defense. And then you looked at Auburn's defense. They have holes, and their D-line is atrocious. Yeah. We knew that they had to replace Derek Brown, but man, they needed to replace a lot more. Miles, I really, really like this Tennessee team. Cade Mays gets a chance to play his old school. If you ask me, I think they have a top five offensive line in the country. Cole Kubiak said that they are number 2 in the SEC behind Alabama. Tennessee, 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 as an underdog. Conference games, 6-1-1 against the spread in their last 8 conference games. Great news about Tennessee. They hold the longest winning streak in the SEC, second longest in the entire country. Georgia is actually playing a team that is really good. We know their weakness. We know that Tennessee's weakness is at quarterback, but they're going to win this game on the ground with Eric Gray. You heard that. I said they're going to win this game. I believe Georgia is on the clock for an upset here.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's a good matchup for them. Tennessee, no turnovers.
None.
In 2020. That was my favorite stat, especially when we're talking about 13.5 points.
Yes.
Or wherever this line ends up, 12, 12.5, wherever it is. The fact that Tennessee takes care of the ball, the fact that they can control the clock on the ground. And what I like about Tennessee is, and this is something that Auburn could not do. Let's see if I can explain this the right way.
Yeah.
Tennessee has the ability, with this offensive line, this running game, to control their own offensive game plan and not let Georgia dictate it for them.
Yes.
Even though Georgia is playing really good defense. But that was Auburn's problem, is that everything they do was dictated by what Georgia was doing on that side of the football. Whereas I think Tennessee can come in with a little bit of a different look here.
Yep.
Where I like the points. Georgia, 5-13 against the spread in their last 18 home games as favorites of 14 or more, which tells me that Georgia doesn't cover big spreads at home. And this is a great example of that. And yes, it's not at 14 points, but for me, this is pretty much that big of a spread.
Absolutely.
It's a large spread at home. They're large favorites. And Tennessee, I don't think is too overrated. I think that they can actually make this a football game.
This is going to be a game that's going to tell us a lot. Was Missouri overrated when they played Alabama and Tennessee and we just gave them too much credit? Or are these two teams, Alabama and Tennessee, that good? And I think Jeremy Pruitt has his defense playing elite, which is going to give, we're going to say his name again, Stetson Bennett problems.
Yeah.
The run game is non-existent for Georgia.
Yes, and that's the other thing, Brad. I'm glad you brought that up. Bennett had a great game last Saturday.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But this guy's still green.
Yes.
He's still learning the offense. He's still learning how to be a college football quarterback, where I just feel like Tennessee's offensive identity, they're really starting to find it.
Yes.
Whereas I think Georgia's going to run into some issues here. And also, man, where are they at? Number 3? I think they're overrated. I do.
Definitely overrated. A look-ahead game for Georgia with big names coming up on their schedule. Roll Tide. Just an easy oversight game. You know, like...
Yeah. All right, next in the SEC, one that I'm all over here, Brad. Number 4, Florida, at number 21, Texas A&M, a 12 o'clock start. Florida, minus 6.5. I'm hammering the Gators here.
I've already locked in Florida. Gonna think about it again before I lock it in again. Miles, tell me why you're on Florida, then I'll tell you why.
Matt Jones last week
Roll Tide
had touchdown passes of 87, 78, and 63 yards. Are you kidding me? And Trask has shown to be just as efficient through the air this year.
And has a receiver similar to Waddle and Tony.
I mean, and he's got Pitts.
I mean, a deep ball receiver like that. Yeah.
But what's scary about Florida is you could argue they have even more.
More weapons. Yeah,
and more weapons. A&M 0-10 straight up in their last 10 games as an underdog. They don't cover at home as home dogs, 3-6-1 against the spread in their last 10. And how about the Gators in their last 9 road games, 7-1-1 against the spread, all under Dan Mullen. I was surprised that this was only 6.5 points because I really don't think A&M looked that impressive against Bama. They couldn't stop. That secondary is struggling.
Yes.
They couldn't stop anything that Bama was doing.
So for me, I saw someone say this, and I kind of agree that Florida is arguably the best team in the SEC. Alabama 1, Florida 1A, 1B.
I was about to say, I mean...
Why I say that, though?
Yeah.
This team strikes me a lot like LSU.
Okay.
LSU last year was outscoring everyone.
Right.
Who's this Joe Burrow kid? Yep. Defense was struggling. If Florida can figure out a way to turn that defense on, they're scary. Defense is allowing 29 points per game and over 327 yards in the air. Kellen Mond will get his yards, but there is no way that a team that just allowed 435 yards and 4 TDs versus a quarterback who really stopped trying in the third quarter is going to keep up with Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask in his last 2 games, 286 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception versus South Carolina, 416 yards, 6 touchdowns versus Ole Miss. You said it, Kyle Pitts is a difference maker. Yeah. He is uncoverable. I do not like what Jimbo Fisher's putting out here. I also don't like their game plan. Their weapons are 2 running backs and a tight end. They have no real receivers. So Kellen Mond, when he's scrambling around the pocket, he has to pick it up with his feet or try to flash it out to his running back in the flats.
And he's still making game-altering mistakes.
Yes.
And that's been A&M in these big games. That's why they don't win these big games, because they're turning the ball over. And it happened again last Saturday.
Absolutely.
So I can't
missed
trust
field
them
goals,
here
turnovers. This team, if it weren't for some garbage time touchdown, would have only scored 17 points in back-to-back weeks.
Yep.
Let's put that in perspective. And now you're playing up against a Florida team who will put up at least 32.5 points. That is their team total. They will cover their team total.
All right, back to the ACC for our last game. What do we got?
Next, we have probably one of the most underrated teams at number 19, Virginia Tech, and number 8, North Carolina. North Carolina is a 5-point favorite. We have a 12 o'clock kickoff here. Miles, I'm going to start this off. I'm taking Virginia Tech as the live dog here as well.
I like North Carolina -5. If you go back to last year here, 2019, Virginia Tech won this game 43-41 in 6 overtimes in Blacksburg.
That was a wild game.
Crazy game. I will say for Virginia Tech, this kid, Khalil Herbert, 358 all-purpose yards against Duke last week. It does scare me how good Virginia Tech's running game has looked. But I'm going to go with Mac Brown here and go with North Carolina, only it being 5.
So, before I looked at our show sheet, someone actually asked me about this game. They're like, how do you want to do? And I saw it opened at 5. It's now down to 4. Before I saw it drop down to 4, I assumed the line would go up. Mm-hmm. With the populator of North Carolina, I was loving to take 6, not taking 4. But Virginia Tech is playing great this year, and you said it. Khalil Herbert is the difference maker. Virginia Tech 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 as underdogs. One thing that I really, really, really am fading here is Sam Howell. Sophomore year, you thought he was going to make this major step. Sam Howell in 2 games. Boston College, he played 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did not play an efficient game. They are lucky to escape that. Against Cuse, horrible game. 295 yards, great through the air, but a lot of that came in the second half. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He needs to limit the turnovers. If he does, I feel like he'll do a lot better. I do know North Carolina is 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 as favorites, but this is me solely going against a hot Virginia Tech team who is very good and very dominant running the ball.
So something's got to give there. One thing I do like about North Carolina, they held Boston College to 40 rushing yards last week, which I think bodes well for them.
Yep.
Really, Virginia Tech's been really good against the pass, and North Carolina's been really good against the run. Also, I don't like the fact that Virginia Tech gave up 31 points to Duke last week, even as good as their offense looked. That's not really a typical Virginia Tech defense we're used to seeing. So I do think we're going to get a close game here. The ACC's been really unpredictable.
Very.
So that's almost kind of a coin flip. And with 5, listen, like if it goes to 6, 6.5, I think that's more of a spread. But with 5, you might as well just pick who you think is going to win the game.
Absolutely, especially with the value you're going to get on Virginia Tech if you decide to go on the Virginia Tech side.
For sure. Okay. Underdog of the week. You're sizzling hot. 3-0, right?
3-0.
3-0. Luckily, I was on the train with you last week, so we picked the Ole Miss upset over Kentucky. In week 1, we picked the Navy upset. You had the big call in week 2 with Mississippi State. Who are you going with this week?
This week, I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina over Louisiana Lafayette. I am not on the Levi Lewis train like I thought he was going to be. This is another situation where we had a quarterback with all this preseason hype. I mean, he played great last year, not playing good. And this Louisiana Lafayette team, I think that the spotlight was too big, where they're underwhelming every game, skating by games. Chadwell's going to have his team ready in Coastal Carolina. For you guys who have not been watching Coastal,
they're a fun team.
They are a fun team.
Yeah.
If this turns out to be a shootout, Coastal's going to win.
I'll tell you, the Sun Belt really has a lot of good teams this year.
Yes.
And they've been having some really exciting games.
I think they are better than the American this year.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely the most talent we've seen coming out of the Sun Belt, no doubt. And also, this could end up being the game of the year. This could be for the conference.
Yes.
Because you could argue that it's 2 of the best teams. All right, I'm going to the ACC. I'm taking NC State +9 over Virginia here. Ooh. NC State coming off a big 30-29 win over Pitt.
Oh, my God.
What I like about this game, too, is a 12 o'clock start, very sleepy. I think Virginia is being a little overrated here because of how close the game was against Clemson. But again, as I said, I'm not taking too much stock into that game. So I'm going with the big upset there.
Miles, I really like that. I'm actually going to lay some money on that. I did not. Hey. That one went way over my radar. I like that. That's just
and also it's a lot of points too.
Yeah.
So it's a really good +9 pick there.
Yeah.
Just because we're still trying to feel things out. And I think we've seen more of NC State this year than we have of Virginia. All right. Before we go into the NFL, let's take a break for the sponsors.
Hey, Miles. You know, it'd be pretty cool if there's a social media app just for sports.
You know, Brad, I was just thinking that. Like a social media app where there's a feed where you can post about your picks, see what others are saying about the game, and you know how I love to see how the lines move throughout the week.
Well, you're in luck. Viget is the best social media platform just for sports. When you download Viget, use promo code SPREAD and create your account today.
NFL. Here we go. Woo-hoo. It's been up. It's been down, but we are still here to talk about the games. All right, Brad, we got the Indianapolis Colts at Cleveland Browns. This is a 4:25 p.m. game. The Colts are 3-point favorites on the road. Who do you like?
Miles, I went back and forth on this.
Me too.
But
Me too,
remember how high I was on the Colts last week? Mm-hmm. I was lucky to cover in that Bears game.
Well, really just the Bears offense was anemic.
Awful. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns, even with losing Nick Chubb. Who are you going with?
Nick Chubb on the IR. I'm still going with the Browns here.
Okay.
Are we crazy?
No,
Browns
we're not
plus
crazy.
3? I mean, You could, first of all, they've played much better competition.
Much
the
better.
Colts have played nobody, and Phillip Rivers looks terrible.
What, they're averaging 245 yards in the air or something like that?
Is just, it's not where I want it to be, whereas the Browns were showing off that big playability.
Wow.
The Colts defense has been good. A league low 14 points per game. But as I said, they haven't played anybody on the offensive side of the ball, so I have no problem taking the Browns here +3.
I totally agree. Chubb down doesn't matter. They lead the league in rushing yards at 204 yards per game. D'Ernest Johnson, I want to say his name right, is going to become a household name this weekend. Nick Chubb will get about 12 carries. D'Ernest Johnson will get 10, and he will make use of every single one of those carries, and people are going to start picking him in fantasy. And I guarantee it.
Maybe they're finally starting to find a spot for OBJ in this offense because
he's a gadget guy.
He is, and he really proved to me last week. I mean, that was the first time I was like, wow. That's what OBJ can do.
Yeah, he can
because
do whatever.
we forgot. I mean, that kid is unreal. He's an athletic monster.
You have to use him.
Get him the ball.
Put the ball in his hands. That's
just find ways to get him the ball.
He's like a college football Tavon Austin. Like he needs the ball.
Yeah, and he gives you everything.
And that wasn't me disrespecting his talent, but that's how Tavon Austin excelled when he was at Cal. Yeah,
sure. And listen, the Cowboys have had their problems on defense, but it was still a really impressive showing from the Browns top to bottom. All right, what's next?
Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings night game playing Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are a 7-point favorite. Miles, who are you going with?
The Seahawks are playing a primetime game at home, night game, Sunday night, Monday night, whatever it is. I always take the Seahawks.
Miles,
-7.
I almost made the dumb error of going, the Vikings are playing well. I'm taking the Seahawks as well.
Take the Seahawks.
7 points. Vikings are 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 as underdogs.
Okay.
That tells you that Vegas knows when they're underdogs, they peg the game right. Dalvin Cook's playing out of this world.
He really is. I mean, he might be the best running back in the NFL right now.
But Kirk Cousins doesn't know what to do with his two receivers. That's all he has. Yeah. We heard all this talk about BC Johnson supposed to be amazing. No, it's Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I don't think that they're good enough on defense this year I don't think they're good enough on offense this year to make up for their defensive lapses that they've been having.
And honestly, I think the only reason that the line is 7, first of all, the line opened at 9.
Yeah.
So that was where I expected it to be. But the fact that it's been bet down to 7 makes me even more confident in hammering the Seahawks here. If you listened to the podcast before, you know how much we like the Seahawks at home. You also know how much we like the Seahawks at home in primetime. I never bet against them. And I'm telling you, percentage-wise, you're always going to come out on the right side.
I was looking at somewhere like a 32-20 game. One thing that was always been electric for the Seahawks, this is my last take on this game, but they have always been a running team. They went from being a running team to a passing team. Their running back only has 230 yards on the ground. Russell Wilson has 16 throwing touchdowns, leads leagues in most touchdowns thrown.
He's been just
MVP.
And he hasn't slowed down. No. So there's no reason to fade the Seahawks here. All right. Moving on, there really wasn't much to pick from, Brad. Honestly, it's a tough week of games in the NFL. I wanted to talk about Bills-Titans.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been a line released for that yet.
We don't even know the game's going to play.
We don't even know the game's going to happen.
More tests came in for the Titans.
Right, exactly. And now there's a Raiders test deposit. I don't know, man. It could turn into a mess, but hey, we're used to it. It's sports in 2020. We're going to go here. Arizona at New York. 1 o'clock game. The Cardinals are 7-point favorites. We were all over the Cardinals last week.
Yes.
Really disappointed me. I mean, we really put our neck out for the Cardinals.
Listen, I've told you this, and I'm going to tell the podcast this. I do not listen to other people's takes before I make my own opinion. Mm-hmm. I use stats, I use game film, and I use knowledge. I thought that for a second I was second guessing myself in my analysis of sports when I watched that game, where I went back, I looked over my notes, and then I listened to about 5 or 6 experts' analysis of that game, and everyone had the same analysis that I did, and I was just crazy. What happened to that offense?
And now it's been 2 weeks in a row where the offense is not looking good.
No. Your quarterback can't throw for 122 yards when you have Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins caught 7 balls for 49 yards.
And Drake is a pass-catching back.
What are you doing?
And he's not even getting touches. So having that said,
what are you going to go?
Having that said, I actually am going to fade the Cardinals here. Call me crazy, man. I can't believe I'm actually going to pick the Jets +7, but here. Darnold's not playing. Flacco's getting the start.
Yes.
Bell should play. He's going to be active off the IR. I'm hoping he plays. Crowder is healthy. The Jets looked a lot better last week in that game against Denver. And right now, man, I just don't feel comfortable with how bad Arizona looked last week and the week before. I don't feel comfortable with the 7 here.
I'm going to be on the opposite side of the coin. I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals.
Sticking with your guns.
For me, this is a good bounce back spot. You get a soft team and a soft defense that really helps them out. It's not so much they're struggling on offense. You look at that game where they played against the Panthers. Their offense wasn't that bad. It was more of their defense couldn't stop them whatsoever. Like when the offense started going, it was just like they're just giving up points and they're too far behind. Now they're playing against a horrible Jets team. Flacco's going to get sacked a bunch. I love the 7 points here. I see a 10, 14-point victory for the Arizona Cardinals. Call me crazy, but I'm taking the 2-0-2 against the spread road team here. Kyler's going to do it with his legs.
I think that you could call both of us crazy for if we even putting a bet on this game. One more thing I liked here for New York, Arizona in their last 21 early afternoon games, so traveling West Coast to East Coast, they're 4-17 overall, and this is their second straight game on the East Coast. So I like to hopefully see the same Arizona team that I've seen the past 2 weeks. If they turn around, I'm going to be really upset, but that's where I'm standing. All right, I knew you liked this one when I sent it to you. We got the Giants and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are 9.5-point favorites. I dare you to take the Giants. Go ahead. I dare you. Take them.
The Giants haven't scored a touchdown in what, 2 games? My
Take
God.
them plus 9.5. They have 3 touchdowns. The Giants have 3 touchdowns
Miles,
in
I'm
4 games.
Stressed you put this on here.
Listen.
I'm stressed.
The Cowboys
are
6-0 against the spread in their last 6 games against the New York Giants. That's 3 straight years of covering against the Giants. And the
Isn't it winning too? I think it's 6-0 straight up too.
Right,
yeah.
It has to be, right? They've owned them, all right? We know the Cowboys are 0-4 against the spread in 2020 because I said it 2 weeks ago. I said there's no way they're going to go 0-3 against the spread. Then I said there's no way they're going to start 0-4 against the spread. Are they really going to start 0-5 against the spread with this team? With Dak Prescott playing out of his mind?
But it's not the offense.
The Giants not scoring? I know it's not the offense.
That's what scares me.
The defense is a mess.
And they're playing against a team who needs life. I swear to God,
can the Giants move the ball?
If the Giants score a touchdown in the first half, they will score 4 touchdowns in the game.
Dallas is 9-1 against the spread in their last 10 games against NFC East opponents. This has an against the spread bounce back written all over it.
Do I have to take a side?
So now I want to know. Take your pick. You know where I'm at. Again, I'm going with the Cowboys minus 9.5. That's the 3rd time this year that I picked the Cowboys.
Listen.
They're not going to start 0-5 against the spread. Go ahead. I dare you.
I think that this game will be a lot closer in the beginning. The difference between the LA Rams and the Dallas Cowboys is the way that the Cowboys attack you from everywhere. They have players that can instantly change the game where the Rams have just a bunch of guys. And
the Cowboys just play aggressive. That's why they're turning the ball over so much.
I'm going to back the Cowboys here, but don't be surprised to see like this plus 6.5 first half cover by the Giants. It's going to be a lot closer than people think. Yeah. It's going to be one of those games where the Cowboys are just too much for the Giants. Even with the defensive woes, I looked at this game back and forth. I was like, I need to find an angle, and there's no angle that you can take besides backing history. You have to back the history. 6-0 against the spread, 6-0 straight up in their last 6 versus the Giants. Giants tried to get a running game going with Devonta Freeman, not happening. Giants tried to get a passing game going, receivers dropping the ball left and right. Daniel Jones is only averaging 201 yards over the air per game.
And they've been such an afterthought. I even forgot that Barkley's not even playing.
No.
Just because they've been such an afterthought. Like they just haven't been able to get anything going on this offense. I mean, 3 touchdowns in 4 games, even against a Cowboys defense that's struggling. I cannot side with the Giants here.
You thought that in the offseason, like teams who struggle with their offensive line, they make a lot of adjustments and make improvements. This might be one of the teams that did not make the necessary improvements to make strides forward, especially when your star players out. Give me the Cowboys. I'll take the Cowboys all the way up to 10.5.
I'm with you. Good work, man. Listen, we have Christmas on Saturday. We have 4, count them, 4 ranked top 25 games. Only 2 more Saturdays without Ohio State, so everybody can calm down. We're almost there.
We're almost there.
Big Ten is going to enter the fray. They're going to enter the chat. They're going to enter the college football playoff talk.
Bing bong. Hello, this is the Big Ten.
Really going to get things going. But until then, let's just enjoy Saturday.
Yeah, dude, I'm so stoked to be able to talk football with you another week. Guys, be sure to download What's the Spread on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or however else you get your podcast. Download the best sports social media app, Vigit. That's Vigit in the Google Play Store or on the App Store. Use referral code spread. Best of luck on your bets this week.